morning, everybody, and yep, actually afternoon. Sorry, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shanita Jefferson. I am happy to be here today. Please bear with me. My nerves are going as this is my second time facilitating, but I just wanted to jump right in and talk a little bit about clemency. Massachusetts, here in our state, we have the smallest number of women incarcerated, but we actually have the highest number of women serving life sentences, which is just ridiculous. Clemency is an actual and vital tool that can be used to bring our women home to their families and communities. I am directly affected. My mother, Angie Jefferson, has served 31 years in Framingham Department of Corrections. She was given a life without parole sentence back in 1996. And we have went through countless visits, emails, letters, phone calls, anything you can think of to support my mother in these past 31 years. As far as her being in prison and the things that she has done, she has literally taken every opportunity to transform and restore her life. My mother right now is a BU recipient. She just received her bachelor's degree from Boston University. She's a certified dog trainer, handler. She passed the cosmetology board for the state. So she's doing big and incredible things inside of Framingham. We actually were able to get her a clemency petition filed. And unfortunately, it was denied, being that she needed more programming. And as I just listed, she's taken every opportunity to educate and transform her life. So for her to be denied for needing more programming was just honestly a slap in the face to my family. I know that clemency is very important and it's underused here in Massachusetts. And growing up with an incarcerated mother has been extremely traumatizing. I'm going to go ahead now and just pass it to Sashi James, who's going to give an introduction to some of the work we do. And then I'll be back to facilitate the rest of the meeting.
Hey everybody, I'm Sashi James from Families for Justice Healing and the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really happy to see all y'all faces. Laura, I was so excited to see you. I hope you had a safe delivery. And thank you for being in solidarity with us all the time. I'm gonna screen share. It's always scary screen sharing because I don't know what's gonna pop up on my screen sometimes, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I did put together a small presentation. I know the focus today is going to be on Catherine and Danielle, but I did want to give an overview of the work that the National Council of Families for Justice Healing is covering. The National Council started inside of a prison yard. One of those women being incarcerated was my mom. And actually we have a couple of our other founders on the call. One of those women being Justine Moore. I think I've seen Shay, Andrea, James is actually also on the call. Those are the women and the reason why we do the work, along as with Danielle Metz and of course our currently incarcerated sisters and other formerly incarcerated sisters. Our goal is to end the incarceration of women and girls. We work through three layers of work, which is policy work. Right now, we are leading in Massachusetts the prison and jail moratorium bill. We also passed the primary caretakers. We are hoping to get elderly parole and medical parole, get sex decrim bill passed and drug decrim. And all these bills will help us get us to our goal of ending incarceration of women and girls. We also do work through the Free Her campaign. I'm really excited to see so many people here today because we're starting our Free Her campaign in the New England states because the New England states have one of the smallest numbers of women incarcerated. In Massachusetts, we do have the highest number amongst the New England states. We're unfortunately creeping up about 1,000 women. It's under 1,000 women right now. But like in Vermont, we have 70 women, and we can definitely end incarceration of women and girls right now. Even in Massachusetts, we can end incarceration of women and girls right now, even though our numbers are rising because we have a community alternative for each of those women. We have an exit plan for each of those women, and we can do better. Our third layer, our third component of work is reimagining communities. Reimagining communities is a beautiful infrastructure which we created to really build up the community, really empower the community, really give the communities that are over incarcerated and under resourced the tools that they need to thrive. I have here women incarcerated in Massachusetts. We are just at under 1,000 women. I believe it's about 860 right now. Our numbers have increased. And this is sad because during COVID really showed us that we can really end incarceration of women and girls in Massachusetts because they began to decriminalize things like shoplifting and just really focus on not just automatically arresting people, but allowing people to just what does a community alternative look like? And now that COVID is kind of disappearing, the numbers are increasing, women are becoming incarcerated. And if we really focus on reimagining communities, we can really shift from incarcerating women and really give women the tools that they need. We organized the listening tour, and one of the number one reasons why women ended up incarcerated in the first place, and 82% of those women were mothers. But one of the number one reasons why women ended up incarcerated in the first place was because they didn't have access to affordable housing or they didn't have housing at all. And when you talk about a woman not having housing, and you talk about 82% of those women being mothers, you know how vulnerable it would be to not be able to provide housing for a child. And so through COVID, we really realized our numbers really hit under about 400 at one point a couple of months ago, but have been unfortunately increasing. But it really showed us that we can really create what different looks like, and we can be the lead on ending incarceration of women and girls as a whole in the New England states. We are working to create alternatives to incarceration, and reimagining communities is all about creating healthy, thriving infrastructures for communities to heal and advance, leading to stopping the flow of women and girls going into prisons and jails. As I said, we do policy work, but we know that legislation is not going to stop the flow of women and girls from going into prisons. We have to really get on the ground and do the work and give the people in the community the power, the tools, and the support and the resources that they need, so that way they don't end up incarcerated in the first place. We can end incarceration of women and girls in one generation right now, if we gave the tools to the community. I'm gonna say that right now, Families for Justice as Healing, we are leading. We just purchased, and through the work of the National Council, always following the leadership of our formerly incarcerated sisters, we purchased three hydroponic farms. One of them is in Pittsburgh, and one of them is right here in Massachusetts. Well, it will be landing in a couple of weeks. In Roxbury, our hyper local organizing is Humble Ave. It's 22 blocks. We have a mobile office there, which is acting as a crisis response team, which will be training our community members how to become EMTs so they can respond to crisis. So if there's a situation where it may be drug use, just a neighbor to neighbor argument, anything, community members can respond, and we don't need to call police to have cause further harm, because in our community we know that police cause further harm. The hydroponic farm will be able to teach community members how to grow vegetables, and this is amazing. I'm not going to take up all of y'all time, but I will say that over the summer we did a trial run, and we gave out fresh vegetables every Thursday just to see if the community members of Roxbury wanted fresh vegetables. And I will say, by the end of the summer, everybody knew me as the vegetable lady. And every Thursday when I drove the van to Humboldt on Crawford Street, everybody was hanging out the window like, can I get my box of vegetables? And so vegetables, fresh vegetables is a need in our community and people want it. And so we're giving that to the community. Basic income guarantee, last year we had 5 women receiving $500 a month, no strings attached. This year we've launched a 22 women where we're giving $500 to 22 women that are formerly incarcerated. 5 of those women are currently incarcerated, and we're just giving $500 to them, no strings attached. And I just want to go scale back to when I say that we're giving 5 women that are currently incarcerated money. You know, if a woman is coming home from prison or has the opportunity to come home from prison, imagine if we allowed a woman to have a cushion to come home to. It's time and time again through our work of participatory defense, our community work, us just getting regular phone calls as we are the ground people that are on the ground with our people every single day. We're seeing GOC push out women and not giving them any support, not even basic skills, no bus pass, no nothing. They're just saying, hey, you're released, go on about your business. These women have been separated from their families. They have been disrupted mentally because of incarceration, and they have nothing. They're just starting at ground zero. And what we're doing is we're changing the narrative and we're allowing women to at least have a cushion. So when you come home, you're not starting from ground zero, but you have a little bit of support to at least get you to your next steps. We're also providing training because as we're doing the work on the ground in the communities to reimagine our communities and again, shift from women being incarcerated and even shift from bringing our currently incarcerated women home through clemency and medical parole and elderly parole, we have to train our people on the ground so that way they know what we're doing and we know what transformative justice looks like and we know what the budget looks like and we know what participatory defense looks like. And of course, I have my 3-year-old daughter who always makes a presentation. Mom, Keisha, can you come get her? So that way we can train our community members so that way we can all be on the same page so transgressions are not happening in our community. And then finally, I'm so excited to announce that Families for Justice Healing, we will also be leading. We'll be giving basic housing guarantee because one of our number one reasons of why women are incarcerated in the first place is because they don't have access to housing. And so now we will be, through our Reimagining Communities on Humboldt, we'll be giving 5 of those women rent paid for 1 year and figuring out what does that ground support look like so we can set women up for success and not failure. And so I'm going to kick it back off to Shanita. And I'm really excited for this panel. This is really going to ground us. And that was just an overview of the dope work that is actually happening in the communities and why we need clemency, why clemency is such an important tool, because we have the infrastructure, we have the foundation, we have the people, we have the family, we have everything that we need to really accept our women that are currently incarcerated back into our community. And I also forgot to just highlight that although we have under 1,000 women, I wanted to say that 5 of those women that are in Framingham right now as we speak are over 70 years old. And one of those women have dementia and she does not even know why she is currently incarcerated. If we can't bring anybody home, she's the first person that deserves clemency. And so I'm going to kick it to Shanita, who's the facilitator, and I hope everybody enjoys this panel.
Thank you, Sashi. That was like so wonderful. And I just want to add just a bit that clemency really is the only, for some women, the only solution to come home. And Massachusetts has like a chance to change the narrative. Clemency is powerful and we need it. And the work that the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls and Families for Justice's Healing, the work that they are doing is priceless. Like I said, we are directly affected. My mom is in Framingham right now. And when we talk about the different boots on the ground strategies that are being done, the women in there are just so happy and blessed that there are people actually out here working, for them to come home. So I'll go and keep it moving right along. I wanted to just open it up for any questions and answers. I know Sashi explained a lot on the work that's being done. But if anyone has any questions, you can put those in the chat and we can take about 5 minutes to just give people a chance to ask any questions that they may have. I'll go ahead and mute myself, and we'll just have 5 minutes for about 5 minutes for that. If I don't see any questions coming, then we can just move right along. All right, so for time wise, we're just gonna move right along. Thank you all. Next up, we have the wonderful Danielle Metz. Danielle Metz is the Director of Clemency for the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. She is also a clemency recipient. She's the last woman to receive clemency under the Obama administration. I'm just gonna ask everybody to give a warm round of applause for Miss Danielle Metz. Thank you. Hi, Danny. How are you?
Hi, Shanita. Hi, everyone. I'm fine. Hi, everything going?
Everything's going good. So I have a couple questions. I'll just get right into asking you. Can you explain a little bit more to us about who you are?
My name is Danielle Metz. I'm the Director of Clemency. I'm also the community health worker here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am a student at Southern University. I am an advocate. I am a freedom fighter. I am an activist. I am a mother, a grandmother, a daughter, and a sister. I can't hear.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. What would have happened to you if you did not receive clemency?
Had I not received clemency, I would have died in prison because there's nothing in place for those who are in prison, because in federal prison, there is no parole. Life means just what it means, life. And I was sentenced to 3 life sentences plus 20 years. At the age of 26, I came home at the age of 49. And it was an uphill battle for me. During that time, President Obama had a clemency initiative, and somehow I met the criteria. In some ways I didn't. But out of those pending petitions, there was 395 pending clemency petition. And out of the 395, there were life sentences. All of those were life sentences, and I was one of them. And so I was able to meet the requirements, and through a lot of hard work, like with the National Council, raising my voice and going to different colleges and universities, speaking about the importance of clemency, I was able to be granted clemency. I was the last person, as Shanita said. So with nothing in place, I would have died, and that was the sentence that I received at that time.
Thank you, Danielle. What resources did you receive while you were in prison?
Well, people tend to think when you're in prison that there's a lot of things in place for rehabilitation, which is so far from the truth. In fact, I was just thinking this morning how when I was incarcerated, I was a suicide cadre myself. And a suicide cadre is a person that assists with people that are attempting to, commit suicide. And I was like, so the resources that should have been in place, they put me in place to communicate to those people. And did, in fact, it helped a lot because it gave me hope, but I couldn't understand why was there not someone inside the institution who deal with these type of problems, with this type of thing. So I was one of the persons that used to talk the people out of wanting to commit suicide. And I did that by basically using my own case. And, I said, well, if I'm here and I'm fighting, don't you think you have something to fight? I mean, they said, I'm never going to get out. I'm never going to get a chance. I'm just here. And, from that, it gave me hope too, because that would give them an opportunity to see life through my eyes, and how, you may be serving 5 years, 10 years, any amount of time is too much. But that was just something that I thought about this morning. I was like, why didn't they have something in place? So, and for me, a lot of things didn't apply to me because I was a lifer. And you're a lifer. I mean, they figured that you're never going home. So why should you do anything but just sit in there and just do your time? And that's how it was, because there's nothing in place for those. It didn't make me a better person. because I was incarcerated. In fact, it made it worse because you learn all kinds of things in prison that you didn't even know existed when you were on the outside. But you have to survive while you're in there.
Thank you. And I apologize if I have my headphones in, but they're cutting grass outside. So if there's some noise, that's what that's coming from. But Danny, I only have two more questions. What resources did you receive after?
After prison, there was nothing in place, where I did have some family support, but nothing like what the National Council has to also offer the people alternative to prison. I had nothing like that. If I had something in place like that, I would have, had so much to look forward to. But I'm thankful that I was able to acquire some resources, but there was nothing in place, like just getting out. In fact, I didn't even have an opportunity to get any kind of reentry classes or anything because, of course, I just happened to go home because I couldn't take reentry courses because I didn't have a date.
And in your opinion, Danny, why is clemency an important tool?
Clemency is very important too. It is like if you would give somebody an opportunity to be granted clemency, it would be like redemption, because I know from experience, most of the people that serve in lengthy sentences, they don't, they don't cause any trouble while they're in there. They are really trying to wait on the opportunity to come home. So for the most part, a lot of the women that I knew, we did what we were supposed to do according to the policy, everything that we needed to do while we were in there. And so it's very important because that would be an opportunity for healing because I never thought that President Obama would grant me clemency, but just his speeches every day was said, we were America of second chances. And that gave me hope. And that was somebody that looked familiar, even though I didn't know him personally. He looked like someone I could have been related to. And when I would always hear his speeches, he said, America is a place of second chances, and that gave me hope. And so when he would always talk about hope, that's what it gave to me, because where there's hope, there's life. So if the governors and the president would grant clemency, it would begin healing. It would begin to decarcerate. We always hear these speeches about, we want to end incarceration or decarcerate. Well, this is a start. We can start with the tool of clemency because it only takes a stroke of a pen. They can review these cases and give the people opportunity. A lot of the parents and family members don't have resources. As Shanita was said, after 31 years, she's thankful that, she has a job and she's able to provide for her mother. But after doing 23 years, your family die off. If they had resources and they're beginning to give out money, they don't have that after 23 years. In fact, a lot of the women don't have anything, only the jobs that they're required to do. And that is slave wages is what they're giving us on the inside anyway, 23 cents an hour or 12 cents an hour. That's practically is slave wages. And so I think that if this tool was exercised more, it would begin of healing. If we say we want to decarcerate, let's start there with clemency, because don't judge the people by who they were 26 years ago or 23 years ago. Let's start with who they are now. I think we all have made some type of mistake in our past, but maybe some have escaped prison and some have not. But still, clemency is an opportunity for a second chance at life. And I've never seen anyone that I know that was granted clemency went back to prison. In fact, they're just soaring, doing all the great things and contributing to society.
And I agree, Danny. Every time you talk, I just get so inspired because I always think of, my mother's situation. But hearing you talk, it's just a wonderful thing to look at you and your experience and know that, there is hope for our loved ones. I know that supporting a person inside that's incarcerated is extremely difficult. Um, Growing up, I saw the struggle that my family had to deal with. And now that I'm older, it's on my shoulders. So again, I just appreciate all your advice and the inspiration that you give to families like mine, because you are a blessing, and I thank you.
if I can I just add one additional thing? I'm here at my daughter's house right now, and when I left, she was 3 years old. She's 33 now. And sometimes we're in a house and we can't even communicate because there's so much trauma. She loves me, I love her. We know we love each other, but we missed a whole lifetime together. And I'm here now, and sometimes we'll sit in the same room and we won't even say anything other than hi, mom. We don't even know how to begin a conversation. So we're taking therapy now, but it's just trauma that seems like it's everlasting. It just goes on and on and on. It's really hard. It's really hard. And in fact, I texted Shanita this morning. I was like, I often think about you, like, what would it be like when your mother come home? Because we all know she's going to come home. But the psychological effects that it has on kids and the families is very hard.
Absolutely. Don't get me emotional, Danny, but absolutely. And I just had a question I wanted to ask that goes along with all of this. But what diversions do you think could have been in place that would have prevented, your time being incarcerated, or even, getting you to that point? What diversions do you think would have helped you?
Well, first of all, if there was something in place that even when I ended up being found guilty and I know I was going to prison, I still was asking, is it anything you can give me? I would take 20 years probation, because that's how sincere I was about not ever doing anything wrong again. And she said, no, Miss Danielle, it's the mandatory minimums. I don't think you know the severity of what is happening. And I didn't at the age of 26. I'm still learning now after being released. So I just think that they should have had something in place, because at 26, prison was not the answer. I didn't leave prison thinking like, oh, that was such a great experience for me. That's not how I left. So if it was just something in place, like things like, it's all kind of alternative to being in prison. You just have to put them in place and, make it available to people, because I just think there was, I know it was very unfair what happened to me, but, and I'm still suffering because of it. I did what I did, but hey, it has to be something. Prison is not the answer.
When I look back, sometimes I think, like as far as my family and the community, they didn't really have the tools to support. Like for instance, my mother back in the early 90s, coming from Roxbury, the Dorchester area, which is, the most incarcerated corridor in Massachusetts, they just were not prepared. So I could think of a list of, things that could have helped prevent her from going to Framingham. She, her father was murdered at the age of 2. Her mother had her own set of issues, education, different things like that. It just was a recipe for disaster, and the community just did not know how to support her then. Do you feel the same, or do you think that your community had the resources to support you?
No, not where they have them, but they don't be offered to the communities where I'm from. The Black and brown people the community where I've come from, we don't have that. And if they have the resources, it's not known that they're in place for us.
I agree, and can definitely understand. And as a young mother, do you think that there were do you think that there were, it's kind of hard to ask that question because it's a community support question. Just thinking back, as my mom was a young mother with 3 children when she went to Framingham. I know when I asked her, do you think that there were programs and different things that they offer now, back then? And her answer is no. What about in your case?
No. And we have lawyers and attorneys, court attorneys, but they're not gonna, I'm not saying that they wouldn't be passionate about it, but we have to speak on it from our point of view. You have to live from lived experiences. I can't tell you what happens in our community unless it happened to me. Just like I can tell you how I feel in prison, but you wouldn't get the full gist of what I'm saying unless you've actually walked in those shoes. So, some days, people may think I have it all together, but they don't know the pain that is within, and it's just in my soul. It's something you have to really walk in those shoes. So that is why I use my voice for the women that I left behind. And that is why I'm constantly doing things, because they say when you keep doing things, that is a direct response to trauma. So I don't normally sit with myself, because I want to let the women know that I'm out here for them. And sometimes it get a little overwhelming, but I know how it felt to be in that shoe, in those shoes, waiting on opportunity, or just hearing somebody say your name. When we talk to the people that is incarcerated after this phone call, and they know that, hey, we was on the phone with a group of lawyers and attorneys and students, they're going to be happy because they know somewhere somebody's going to speak about this conversation. And that is very important. And that is why I keep going and do all that I do, because I'm an extension of those that are still in there. And they have some phenomenal women that are incarcerated. I mean, look at your mother. I mean, she have milestones of rehabilitation if that's what she needs to get released. And they still say not enough programming. That's unreal. And it's unfair.
And I think it's very important. And I'm sorry, sorry about that, Danny.
And it's not just for us to be silent about it. That is criminal in of itself, to not speak about these things that we know is not right, And I think clemency would be the right direction, because we made a wrong turn somewhere, but we can correct that with clemency.
I love how you wrap that up. That is the truth. No one is looking at these women and thinking, how did they get here? And what happened in their life to get them to this point. A lot of generational trauma, and so many other things to add on to that. And it's just not fair to, look at them after all this time and really give them a second chance, when a lot of them, including my mother, didn't get a first chance. So I really thank you, Danny. Very inspiring and beautiful as always. And you are definitely just somebody that I really look up to professionally, and just, on a personal level, because you are so powerful and you've been through it. And like you said earlier, a lot of people, including myself, because I've never been arrested. I'm a daughter of a mother who's been incarcerated, but I would never understand the other side. I can only give the perspective of being out here and supporting my loved one while she's been incarcerated. And would you like to say anything else, Danny?
I just want to say that I'm proud of you too. And that, I know your mother is proud of you. And we at the National Council, that's what we do. We produce leaders, real leaders in the space that they're in, real leaders. And, I remember when I first met you, you hadn't spoken, and now your voice just resonates all the time. And that is what we do. We put into our people, and that's what we're doing now, putting into our community. We just need the others on the call to buy into what we're talking about, come and be a part of what we're trying to do to change this system that has been broken for such a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shanita.
No problem. Thank you for everything. And I know that was a lot. So I just wanted to give another opportunity for anyone who may have a question to drop it in the chat. Feel free to do that, and we can answer those for you, whether it's for me or to Danny or Sashi. We have a couple extra minutes, so anybody can drop that in the chat.
Yeah, I think there's a question in the chat that Pauline left. And I accidentally sent you a question privately. I meant to put it in the chat, but they are there, so.
Oh, okay, I see that.
Okay.
Jenny, were you saying something?
No, I was asking what was the question? Was it a question to me?
No, but there was a question. There was a question to me.
Okay.
And I'll just briefly answer that. I think there was, how did we come up with the funding for $500? One of the ways that we come up with, obviously we have membership. I remember last year, which is a beautiful moment for us, we were at the time when we started our basic income guarantee program, we only were able to afford 300, three women, $500. And we have a beautiful membership, a beautiful formation called Building Up People Not Prisons, who supports us across Massachusetts, which we also hope to expand this across the New England states. But we meet every Saturday, and they actually helped us get to our goal of 5 women for $500 a month through individual donations. And now we have 22 women, and that's all through just groundwork. My mom, Andrea James, also, doing the work and encouraging folks to donate and support. But more importantly, it's the power in the people. I also like to say that it is not government money, it's not city money. We never get funded by the government. We never get funded by the city. We're abolitionists, and our vision must be too big because we give our funding directly to the people that need it the most. And so I always just like to carry that. And so our individual donations and our membership is so important because we're really able to, with a small budget, change the lives of people, literally from one hand to the other. And Shanita and Danny, y'all always have me choked up. So I was really excited to hear y'all. And I believe there was another question about the DA rolling things back. I just wanted to say, we got to take everything one day at a time. The prosecutor is a prosecutor, and we understand that. And we have participatory defense, and we just want to figure out how we can get on the best side of the best side, so that way we can really bring our people home and just move forward. We don't have a relationship, a deep relationship right now with the DA, but we'd love to move in a positive manner, so that way we can figure out how we can support our sisters as they transition home. And Andrea, I see you if you'd like to chime in on that as well. Andrea James is our founder. She's I'm pretty sure y'all know her. If you'd like to say anything, feel free. We do have a couple of minutes ahead.
We've been a part of the what a difference a DA makes. DAs are elected. We have to make sure we know who we are putting in that seat and that we do not go backwards. Having Rachel Rollins as the Suffolk County District Attorney, Rachel and I went to law school together. We didn't hesitate to go and ask for meetings. And she did come in and begin to have a regular and consistent quarterly meeting with the women at Families for Justice as Healing to help us to figure out what does different look like. And she was instrumental. Had it not been for Rachel Rollins, I mean, we've been on the ground for years, raising awareness and trying to encourage Governor Baker to use his clemency power. And who gets clemency? And we're happy for these men, for these gentlemen who will have the opportunity to go before the parole board to be relieved of their sentences. We're very, very happy for them. But to have done this and to completely ignore all of the work that we have been doing for years, for a decade now, to move the issue around ending incarceration of women and girls, and particularly using clemency, was just outrageous to us. So having a district attorney who understood that there was a possibility of getting Miss Angie in a position where we could begin to go back to the parole board with her, which we need all of your support on and help to get her out this time, that did make a huge difference. So a DA does make a difference, and we'll continue to keep pushing so that we do not go backwards.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm gonna go ahead and move right along. Next, we're gonna have Catherine Shevchenko talk, as Catherine is the senior legal counsel at the National Council. And Catherine, if you're ready, you can go ahead.
Sure. I'll start out by saying I'm Catherine. I'm counsel to the council, which is the greatest title anyone could ever have. I am not formally incarcerated. I am fairly new to this work. And I invite you all to come on the journey that I am going on to learn about incarceration of women and girls. It is a harrowing world. that at least I, speaking for myself, have been sheltered from for far too long. But this is a fight that is worth fighting. And this is a fight that under the leadership of Andrea James and the other folks on the panel, the people that have been affected, the experts who know, this is a fight we can win because they have brought together both the awareness about the cruelty of the prison industrial complex and are thinking constructively about how to reimagine communities. How do we create communities where we can stop the supply line, so to speak, of people who are vulnerable to incarceration? Whereas in my experience, either people worry about prison reform or they do community development. But it is only the National Council that has brought these two worlds together. And that is going to make a huge difference because these things do not happen in a vacuum. I wanted to maybe dispel a few myths about clemency. First, because we are getting CLE and I am a lawyer, I have to bore you with definitions. When we say clemency, we mean pardons. A pardon is basically full exoneration from whatever the conviction was that you had, and that includes the collateral consequences. I think what people sometimes don't realize is that once you've done your time, the burden is still there. The punishment continues through probation, through prohibition against voting, through prohibition against having certain licenses, so that a conviction haunts you for the rest of your life. And a pardon is a magic wand that makes that go away. A commutation is if you are sentenced to a certain amount of time or to life, a commutation then reduces that time. And usually it's reduced to time served, but you are still carrying around the other burdens of a criminal conviction. One thing I want to really stress is, and Danny has referred to clemency as a tool. Clemency is not a gift. Clemency is not the president was feeling good today, the governor had a yummy breakfast, and so they've decided Deus ex machina to do somebody a favor. Clemency, and this is Justice Rehnquist, no bleeding heart liberal he, Justice Rehnquist said clemency is the fail-safe justice. Clemency is there to fix the problems that the criminal legal system has caused for itself and it cannot fix, and which is doing harm to people and their communities. Clemency is in the federal Constitution. So the fact that we sort of consider something, consider clemency as out of the ordinary or something special or lightning striking, and isn't that person lucky? We need to reject all that. We need to insist that clemency be restored to the central role that it has played for centuries. In our criminal legal system, I mean, going back to the Romans and Hammurabi, this is a very new modern phenomenon that clemency has somehow been looked on with distaste, that it's something that a governor or a president does, in the dead of night, 24 hours before their term is ended. And so that is something that we as lawyers need to speak up and not be ashamed of advocating for clemency, not be scared to say no. In this particular case, such as with Shanita's mother, the system is rendering harm. This is the tool that we have to stop the harm, and it needs to be used. The other thing I want to say, particularly now that people are now worried about, the crime rate is going up and, we can't be soft on crime. And so now is not the time for clemency. And this is echoing Danny's remarks. So clemency is actually much more critical if you want to be tough on crime. Because if clemency is the fail-safe and you have a draconian system, then you need a much stronger, more robust circuit breaker. There's a reason that a nuclear power plant has a lot more safety features than your local substation because of the harm that can be done. And clemency looks at the person as they are now. Clemency has nothing to do with whatever transgression they made, whatever we may think about it, whatever judgment society has passed on that. Clemency looks at what the person has become. Have they taken advantage of programming? Have they gotten their GED? Is Shanita's mother? I mean, she's got a bachelor's now. She is not the person she was 31 years ago when she made that mistake. And as you heard from both Shanita and from Danny, when they went in, they were very young. And as we know now, the brain is not fully developed until age 25. So that people make foolish, rash decisions under a lot of pressure because of poverty, because of the lack of opportunity. And they make these decisions at 17, 18, 19 years old. And then we just tell them, sorry, we're throwing your life away. And what clemency says is, no, people age out of criminality, if I can put it that way. People mature. People turn their lives around. And when you're doing that behind bars in a cage with no support, and you can turn your life around under those conditions, then you are an amazing human being. And you are a human being that needs to be in our communities building what looks better. And so clemency is really something that obviously benefits the person that is being released, but benefits us all. And so the idea that somehow we should shy away from it or think of it as something special, it is central to our system of justice. And therefore, it is something that I would urge you all to lift up and to normalize. So I do also, I know I'm going on too long, but do want to just give you one example of where clemency can be very useful, and that is with conspiracy. And I'm sure you all know that the conspiracy laws that we have are very harsh. Basically, if you do any overt act that contributes to the furtherance of a conspiracy, you are responsible for everything that everybody does in that conspiracy. And so I learned the other day from one of the fellows in the program that we had. She was incarcerated with a woman who was doing time because she texted her boyfriend who was involved in drugs and asked him whether she could pick him and his friends up any food from McDonald's. And they said, sure. And she showed up with Big Macs and French fries. And that was a sufficient overt act for her to be taken away from her family, from her community, to put her children through the trauma of losing their mother, and to sit in a prison because she had somehow furthered this drug conspiracy. And we see this over and over again because women are involved in these conspiracies, if you can use that word, you know, on the periphery. You know, I'm speaking in generalizations here, but in the majority of situations, the men want to protect, you know, their wives, their sisters, their daughters, whoever, so they don't give them a whole lot of information. And when the feds come in and bust up the drug ring, what do the men do? The men, you know, give information on each other. They cooperate. They get reduced sentences. Sometimes they even walk. And then that's that for them. The women, on the other hand, have no information to give up because they haven't been playing any kind of significant role. So they have nothing to bargain with. And then the prosecutors are, whoa, we have to look, you know, tough on drugs, war on drugs, you know, zero tolerance policy. And so they take advantage of these mandatory minimums. And it's the women that end up in prison for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I wish I was exaggerating about those sentences. But that's what the 1994 crime bill and the war on drugs has brought to us. So I'm, you know, people are generally, or lawyers anyway, are aware of, you know, the damage and how far the web of conspiracy can go and drag people in. But I just wanted to highlight the gendered aspect of this, that it is women and mothers who are really bearing the brunt of this, because the system, of course, rewards those that cooperate, because what the prosecutors really want is to rack up the convictions. And so they're in the conviction business, and they don't really care what deal they have to cut if it's going to get them, you know, 4 or 5 more people arrested. But, you know, if there's nothing in it for them, then they love to look tough on crime. And that's where the women get stuck. So Sashi, I had a little PowerPoint. This PowerPoint is, I will warn you in advance, a pretty shameless infomercial about how you as lawyers can help the National Council. So Sashi, if you can go to the next slide. Financial support, obviously, become, oh, there's supposed to be words in there. I guess they disappeared. Anyway, you can become a member of the National Council, $5 a year. We'll take more if you want to up your membership contribution. You can contribute to the National Council, and please, if you do work for a large firm, consider lobbying to have the National Council be put on your firm's list of organizations where they will match any contribution that you make, because that would double the money that we would get, for which we would be very grateful. And as Sashi indicated, all of the money goes directly to local communities, to things like guaranteed income. We are not the Red Cross. We are not in this business to, you know, salt money away, but to get it to the people who need it. Next slide. Yes, activism. Please support the National Council's prison moratorium bill that is currently going through the Massachusetts legislature. And it would stop all prison construction for the next 5 years. It would allow renovations to existing structures, but this is a way of stopping a new women's prison that there is a movement to build. And obviously, Massachusetts does not need a new prison for women. Massachusetts leads no prisons for women. So march with us, stand out with us. Sashi is an amazing organizer. She's always going somewhere to speak truth to some power. Join her, raise your voice, and have some fun. Write letters. Currently, we are supporting the Fixed Clemency Act in Congress, which would set up an independent commission to review clemency applications in the federal system. There are currently a backlog of 18,000 applications that are sitting in the Justice Department gathering dust. So obviously the current system literally does not work. And the Fix Act would create an alternate system. We have been part of the coalition to save Melissa Lucio. If you do not haven't heard her story, she is a mother whose daughter fell down the stairs and was tragically injured and died a few days later. She was convicted of murdering her child and is currently has an execution date of April 27th, although she is clearly innocent. So please join us in writing letters to the Texas Parole Board to tell them to grant clemency to Melissa Lucio, and that link there, which I hope we can put in the chat, will give you addresses and sample letters and help you on your way with that effort. Next slide. So we've talked about the disparate impact of conspiracy laws on women. We have actually are collecting information about women who have received these draconian sentences, and would love information if in your practice you run into this, either stories, or if you have capacity to help us with data analysis of women's sentences versus men's sentences and conspiracy charges, scraping information from electronic dockets and getting some hard data about the extent to which this is happening, we would be very grateful. If you're sitting around thinking, let's come up with an amazing legal theory today, how do we go after the disparate impact of conspiracy laws on women to shut down the conspiracy laws? Is there some creative lawyering we could do there? And then if you are defending a woman, please do it unapologetically through the lens of gender, and make sure that the judge and the prosecutor and everybody knows that this is a form of discrimination, when she goes down for the acts of everybody else. Next, please advise us. I am the senior legal counsel at the National Council, an act of hope and optimism that someday I would have a junior counsel to match my senior counsel. So we are always looking for experts in areas of law to help us. Administrative law is very useful if you want to slow down a bid protest. I think one of the things I am most proud of is we slowed down the construction of the women's prison in Massachusetts by a year, because the law still says that they have to publish their bid in the local newspaper. And so when they were looking for architects, they forgot to do that. So we said, contract won't be valid because you didn't publish it in the local newspaper. Don't know if there still is a local newspaper, but you didn't publish it. And so they had to withdraw the bid, and bureaucracy being what it is, it took them a year to recover from that. So environmental law, if you have expertise in, the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Air Act, anything, please, we would love some free advice on that. Forensic accounting. We have heard from 4 separate federal prisons that they literally do not have sufficient funds to feed the women who are incarcerated there. And as a result, these women are getting expired food, FEMA meals that, you know, are a year out of date, random stuff, you know, dinner is peanut butter and, you know, crackers, moldy fruit, mystery meat with mold on it. Congress is showering the BOP with money. So the fact that there isn't enough money to feed people that are incarcerated says to me that somebody is siphoning money somewhere. And we would love to be able to figure out who that is. We do know that in FCI Dublin, a federal women's prison in California, they have been walking staff off the compound at the rate of now two or three people a week, largely for sexual misconduct, but also for financial misconduct. So, you know, that's out there and needs to be uncovered. Next. Of course, we need resources. If you have summer associates, if you're at a big law firm and would like to lend them to us for a month, 2 weeks, whatever, or for an assignment, we would be very grateful. Law librarians are the most brilliant people on earth. And, you know, if you're at a big firm and have access to all the Westlaws and LexisNexuses and Bloombergs, we would love some research assistance. If you have junior associates who are dying to do a deposition, I've got plenty of depositions that I am dying not to do. So we could, you know, maybe cooperate there. And then access to litigation software as well. And I think maybe that is it. Yes, so thank you very much. I apologize for going over. And yes, I will turn it back over to Shanita and the experts.
Thank you, Catherine, and no need to apologize. Very informational. And I actually just have one question for you, if you don't mind. Is it possible to advocate for clemency successfully at a time when the public is so concerned about a rise in transgressions? I'm sorry,
yeah.
Catherine, but there's a Carol. Can you please mute the phone? Sorry about that, Catherine.
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to hear me? Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I think it is very important to just keep clemency separate from the transgression that caused the person to be incarcerated. Transgressions are, in theory at least, about, they're systematic. We are going to protect the community by locking up drug dealers. So that they put a person in a category. Clemency is about saying this individual person does not belong in this category or no longer belongs in this category because of the changes that they have made in their life. So I think it is very important for us to dispel this notion, which is coming up as we're discovering with the Fixed Clemency Act. Oh, no, it's not the right time because crime rates are going up. People who are good candidates for clemency have been in for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Your mother has been in for how many decades? So it's got nothing to do anymore with what she did and everything to do with her future and how we can benefit from what she's learned and how she's grown in the last however many years.
Thank you. And I just wanted to pass it to Sashi. I know she's just gonna jump on and say something.
Hey, I just wanted to make the connection from the beginning to the end as far as like why it's important that we invest in reimagining communities, and we understand that many years ago and even today, there were diversions that should have been in place that were never in place. And so when we talk about the transgressions that are happening, whether it's from a long time ago or right now, and when I say that, I mean, we can't just casually have a conversation when you say a mother has caused harm to their child, or a mother or a woman has caused harm to another person. We can't just casually walk over that, because that's a problem, right? But there was something that was not in place, so that way we could have given the resources to that mother or that person, so that way a child was not harmed or a person's life was not taken. And so the goal is that we need to start to take a step back and realize that people missed opportunities. Everybody was not given the same opportunity as other people, and we have completely failed our community. And what we're trying to do is really, like Danielle said, is go back and figure out how we can correct our wrongs that we have done. And prison is not going to stop the next baby from being harmed or the next person from being harmed. And I'll be fully transparent. This week I actually lost my aunt to a drug overdose, and that was my favorite person in the entire world on the planet. And I've been going to the mat every single day to get her in a space where she didn't have to rely on using drugs every single day. But I lost that battle with her. And as I visit homeless shelters where she was cycling in and out of, or I go to the hospital where she passed away, I realized that there is so many tools that need to be in place, so that way women aren't causing harm to themselves or others. And our goal is not to judge these women, but it's also to stand in solidarity and figure out what can we do, so that way we don't have another overdose, or we don't lose another child, we don't lose another person, and instead we really put the people first and figure out how we can heal. We can't take back what has been done 30 years ago. We can't do that, but what we can do is control what happens in 30 years from now. And so that's why it's so important that we have lawyers like y'all just stand with us and stand in solidarity and understand that people make mistakes, and our job is not to judge them. Our job is to give them a second opportunity, because some of those women never had a first. And so I just wanted to close that up. And I just also wanted to just really center that we're on the ground every day doing the work in our community, so that way women and girls are not ending up in prison in the first place. We're trying to give the resources that these women and girls need, and just trying to give them the opportunity. But it takes time, and it takes hard work, and it takes dedication, and it takes us to fail and get back up and do it again. But we're doing it. And so I know sometimes people don't even know that we just purchased a hydroponic farm, because the news is not going to say, oh my God, did you know FJ is giving out free vegetables? Because that's not the center of the media right now. But the work is being done, and we really need lawyers to stand in solidarity with us and be movement lawyers and help us, so that way we can have a progressive future. Because the number one reason why I do this work is so that way my daughter does not end up incarcerated, and my sister and my family. And so I just wanted to close up. I'm not going to say much more, but I just really wanted to make that connection to let y'all know that we need y'all to help us.
That was beautiful, Sashi. Thank you. One thing that's definitely important to remember is that a lot of these people that are incarcerated, the women that we're speaking about, the women and girls that are incarcerated, they leave behind family, but more importantly, little people. You know what I mean? I was 3.5 when my mom went away, and now I'm 34. I have a 7-year-old daughter who has her first time visiting Framingham. She was 2 weeks old, and she'll be 8 in November. And this is part of her life story. This is what she knows. This is, what I unfortunately had to introduce her to. So I just want to leave people with that piece of information too, that there's so many children out here that need their parents home, their parents and their grandparents home. So thank you so much for allowing me to facilitate. I feel a lot more comfortable than I did when I first started. And that's due to all the positive energy and information I was given. And I'm going to pass it back to Lola to get us closed out of here.
Oh my gosh, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sashi. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Shanita. Thank you. I've learned a lot, and I was moved beyond words, and I suspect others were as well. Before we go, I'll just say a few words. Just a reminder that this is a collaboration between Families for Justice Healing and the National Council and the Women's Bar Foundation. When we started this project, it was at the invitation of EFJA to work with them to represent women who are serving long to life sentences in prison, who mostly are elderly at this point. And the goal of the project is to really take these cases for representation. And the way we're doing that is by providing panels, trainings, and I think at this point we've been doing about 6 to 8 week meetings of support for attorneys in groups who are taking these cases. And the goal is to, I mean, of course, gather this way and be inspired and moved, but also, as Catherine laid out, a number of ways to support this movement. Our goal is really to get folks to volunteer to take these cases and represent in these petitions for clemency and commutation in Massachusetts. So this is part of a bigger conversation, and I'm glad you all were able to participate in this piece. We will be having more conversation. We have a panel coming up on June 7th that will hone in even more, and Catherine really brought us into the conversation about women and why it's specifically a women's program. And I think Andrea too, I'm not sure if she's still on the call, but we haven't seen many commutations in Massachusetts, and the two that we've seen in recent memory have both been men. And we are here for a very specific purpose, and that's why we specifically targeted the role of gender on incarceration. And we'll continue that, viewing this work through that lens. The June 7th presentation will actually be a presentation on postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis. And we will be taking a closer look at how giving birth and how motherhood and mothering can impact somebody's making some very difficult choices. So we hope that you'll join us for that. We will be offering a training. So the June will be a presentation, a panel just like this one. In the fall, we'll be having a training that will be the nitty-gritty about how to start taking a clemency case. What do you do? How do you contact a person who is incarcerated? What numbers do you dial? Things like this. So we hope you'll join us for that as well, and just keep the ball rolling and keep the conversation going with us. So that's the bigger picture thing. I'll just again thank the National Council of Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls and AFJA for joining us in this work, and to thank our bar partners. Once again, if you're joining at their recommendation, thank you. SABA, South Asian Boston Association of Greater Boston, has co-sponsored with us. Mass Black Women Attorneys have co-sponsored. Asian American Lawyers Association Massachusetts is sponsored with us. The Boston Bar Association has supported this work. The Women's Bar Association has supported this work. The Hispanic National Bar Association, the Massachusetts Association of Hispanic Attorneys. Thank you all for showing up in such a big way. Oh, sorry, the Mass Black Lawyers Association. Thank you all for showing up in such a big way for this work and for these women. And we look forward to more going down the pike. Also, if you did want those CLEs, be in touch. Let me know that we should be looking out for you, and we will be sure that you get those. I'm just going to take a peek in the chat to see if there are any more questions. If there are any final questions, please go ahead and put them on. I'll scroll back up. Lots of thank yous. Second. Looks like that link was put in the chat. Okay, great. I don't see any new questions. So if that is all, we'll call it a day. And thank you again so much. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you to our co-sponsors. Thank you to the attendees. Thank you, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Lola. I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you. I will now that this is one more thing that is done. This was so incredible. Shanita, you were awesome. Let me stop the recording.